សូមអញ្ជើញអង្គុយចុះ
Please be seated. Members of the media are requested to leave the room now, please, so that we can commence our substantive hearing. Today, in the name of Cambodian people and the United Nations, and pursuant to the law on the establishment of the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia for the prosecution of crimes committed during the period of Democratic Kampuchea, promulgated by Royal Crum NS or KM 1004/006, dated on the 27th of October 2004, the trial chamber of the extraordinary chambers in the court of Cambodia declares open the substantive hearing on case file 001 relating to the accused Kang Kek Eo alias Duch, aged 66, who has been charged with crimes against humanity, grave breaches of the Geneva Convention of the 12th of August 1949, and violation of the 1956 Cambodian Penal Code, which consists of premeditated murder, Articles 501 and 506, and torture, Article 500. Offences defined and punishable under Article 3 new, 5, 6, 29 new, and 39 new of the law on the establishment of the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia related to S21 in Phnom Penh. The bench is composed of judges: Nil Non, President; Silva Cartwright; 3. Judge Yasser Khan; 4. Judge Jean-Marc Lavaigne; 5. Judge Tumani, and 2 reserve judges: 1. Judge Yu Ottara; 2. Judge Claudia Fens. In this case file 001, there are 93 civil parties, all of whom have been divided into 4 groups, and also there are 15 civil parties lawyers, in which 6 is national and 9 is international. The greffier, have you already verified the attendance and the identity of parties this morning? Your Honors, the greffier says, I have already verified the attendance and the identity of parties in the proceedings. The 5 civil parties representatives are absent, Today we have 44 civil parties in attendance. Thank you. The graphier, make sure that these attendance sheet will be recorded in the transcript. The detention facility guard, please bring the charged person to the dock. Mr. Kang Gek Yew, please stand up. The next proceedings is relating to the questions that the chamber may ask the accused to state identity. What is your name? My name is Kang Gek Yew alias Duch. Could you please spell your name, Gek Yew? How is it spelled? In Latin, Gek Yew should be spelled as G-O-E-K space E-A-W. Besides these names, have you used other names? The President, since I was born, my father gave me the name of Yun Chiu, and this name was given to me after 3 months when I was born, and my name was registered. My original name was Kang Chiu. Then later, there was a teacher who pretended to be a fortune teller, gave me the name of Jim Kiu. And then I attended school. I used the name Kang Kiu. In 1957, I took the exam of the primary school exam. Then I changed from Kang Kiu to Kang Gek Yew as agreed by my father. Then when I came to enter revolution, I used Kang Gek Yew alias Duch, and Duch is my revolutionary name at that time. In 1986, I went to China. I used the name Hong Pen. In China, I worked until 1988, and I came back, and I still use the name Hong Pen. Where were you born? Your Honors, my real birthplace was in Powai village, Piem Bang commune, Stone district, Kampong Thom province. The President, what is your occupation? before you were arrested? Recently, before I was arrested by the military court, I was a teacher in Samlot district, Battambang province. What is your father's name? Is he still alive or deceased? The court official, could you please help facilitate the microphone for the accused? The President, Your Honors, my father's name is Kang Ki, was born in 1915. He died in 1990. What is your mother's name? Is she still alive or deceased? She was born in 1923. Now she is still alive. Do you have any wife? What is her name, and is she still alive or deceased? Duch. Yes, I got a wife. I got married on the 20th of December 1975, but she was deceased on the 11th of November 1995. How many children have you got? The interpreter regrets that he cannot hear. The interpreter regrets that we did not receive any sound from the accused. The second child is a boy. His name is Hong Siu Peng. He lives in Samlot and he works as a teacher. The third child is Hong Siu Ming. A boy now lives in Samlot and works as a teacher. The fourth child, named Hong Tai An, lives in Samlot and is a teacher. Mr. Kang Kek Yew, since you are the accused person in this case, during this hearing and sequential hearings, you have the following rights. The right to be defended by a lawyer of your choice. Regarding this right, the Chamber observes that from the investigation phase up until now, you have two lawyers, one national, Mr. Ka Savot, and one international, Mr. Francois Rouge. At every stage of the proceeding, you have the right to remain silent, the right to against self-incrimination, the right to be informed of charges against you. Mr. Kang Kek Yew, did you receive the notification of the charges against you? Mr. Kang Kek Yew, the President, I have already been notified of the charges against me. When did you receive that notification? Since I arrived at the ECCC. The President, in addition to the notification of charges and in compliance with Rule 89B of the internal rules, the trial chamber assigns two greffiers, Ms. Sai Kolvati and Mr. Duch party to read the factual analysis in the indictment and the counts against you from the co-investigating judges. Closing order, paragraph 10 to 162, together with the pretrial chamber's decision on appeal against the closing order, paragraphs 152 to 153. The President would like to inform that, the chamber would like to inform that the names of the people involved shall be used with the pseudonym unless there will be any protective measure issued. I would like to give the floor to Ms. Saikolvati to read the first part of the factual analysis.
Dương tam đầy ca mình chương rương tới chùm đồng chùm rẽ cho ngày tí 8 khai xây hà năm 2008 rồi ban cai pra đòi xa đầy ca rồi bỏ ông bồ rê chùm đồng chùm rẽ cho ngày tí 5 khai thân nụ năm 2008 đại miên chôn chọp chào chmô căng cậy yêu hạt đôi phết pro chôn chiết khmái cát nơi ngày tí 17 khai với cá năm 1942 nơi cung bơ với không piêm
Monsieur le Président, est-ce que la Chambre voudrait autoriser l'accusé à s'asseoir pendant la lecture de l'acte d'accusation? Est-ce que la Chambre voudrait autoriser l'accusé à s'asseoir pendant la lecture, Monsieur le Président? On n'entend pas.
I would like the lawyer for the accused to speak again.
Introduction.
Okay, the accused lawyer asked whether the accused would be allowed to sit down for the duration.
The chamber will accept the request, but the chamber would like to request that the chamber has its own proceeding within the time frames where the listening in the ECCC since the 30th of July 2007 and was charged with crimes against humanity, grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions of 12 August 1949 and violations of the 1956 Cambodian Penal Code, offences defined and punishable under Articles 3 new, 5, 6, 29 new and 39 new of the law on the establishment of the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia for the prosecution of crimes committed during the period of democratic Cambodia. The President, because the reading of the counts is going to take a long time, I permit the accused to sit and listen to the counts and the factual analysis. The graphic. The investigation reveals the following facts. Part 1. Summary of facts. A. Historical and political context. On 17 April 1975, the Army of the Communist Party of Cambodia, CPK, the Cambodia's People's National Liberation Armed Forces, KPNLAF, entered Phnom Penh and seized national power. With the end of the civil war against Lon Nol Khmer Republic, the CPK's stated policy was to pass to the next phase of making socialist revolution. During the 3 years, 8 months and 20 days that followed, the CPK exercised effective authority over democratic Cambodia and pursued a policy of completely disintegrating the economic and political structures of the Khmer republics and creating a new revolutionary state power. Historians and observers agree that this program was implemented through a number of means, including the forced transfer of residents of Phnom Penh and other former Khmer Republic strongholds to the countryside, the creation of party-controlled agricultural production cooperatives, where people were made to work under extremely difficult conditions to increase food production, and the elimination of officials and supporters of the previous regime. Many of these CPK policies required the transformation of the new people into peasants. These individuals were broadly made up of evacuated city dwellers and peasants living under colonial control until April 1975, as distinct from the old or based people who were essentially peasants from areas already under the authority of the CPK during the Khmer Republic period. Politically motivated extrajudicial executions were committed from the outset of military units. They continued thereafter in security centers throughout the country. The CPK foreshadowed these events by organizing in February 1975 a popular national congress of the National United Front of Cambodia, at which it publicly announced that 7 so-called Khmer Republic super traitors were to be summarily killed for treason post-liberation. The Congress also declared that lower-level Khmer Republic personnel would be welcomed by the revolutionary forces, provided they immediately ceased their service to the 7 traitors and stopped cooperating with them. This implied that any such personnel who did not immediately defect to the communist side were vulnerable to summary execution. In fact, it appears that from the early 1970s, CPK security organs such as M13, chaired by Duch, had been tasked with executions, indicating that a policy of physically eliminating persons deemed enemies of the revolution was already institutionalized prior to 17 April 1975. The CPK destroyed the legal and judicial structures of the Khmer Republic. While it is true that democratic Cambodia adopted a constitution in January 1976, its Chapter 7 concerning justice showed the CPK's priority was to protect the state from subversion. Article 10 provided for an unspecified highest level of punitive sanction for opposition and wrecking activities of a systematic character that endanger the state, while declaring that other crimes must be dealt with through re-education and refashioning within the context of state or popular organs. Although Article 9 promised that courts constituted as people's courts belonging to the people would embody the people's justice and defend the people's rights and democratic freedoms, there is no evidence that they were ever created. Moreover, while the first and apparently only meeting of what was said to be popularly elected People's Representative Assembly mandated the formation of a judicial committee in April 1976, no evidence exists of any implementation of Article 9. This left the punishments set forth in Article 10 to be applied arbitrarily. Furthermore, there is no evidence that the CPK established appropriate facilities for captured enemy combatants or civilians, or mechanisms to challenge the legality of their arrest, detention, or punishment. The old legal structures were replaced by re-education, interrogation, and security centers where former Khmer Republic officials and supporters supporters, as well as others accused of offenses against the CPK, were detained and executed. This network of security centers was supplemented by a program of surveillance at all levels of the regime, which aimed to identify, report, and eliminate potential enemies of those in control of the party. Thus, numerous persons, rightly or wrongly linked to the Khmer Republic or its purported social class foundations, were punished or summarily executed by the CPK in the days and weeks immediately following the liberation of Phnom Penh through to the end of the regime. Almost immediately following the KPNLAF's entry into Phnom Penh on 17 April 1975, international armed conflict broke out between Vietnam and Cambodia. Protracted hostilities continued until at least 6 January 1979. Although Democratic Cambodia and the Socialist Republic of Vietnam only officially recognized the existence of international armed conflict on 31st December 1977, there is evidence that from mid-April 1975, with the exception of several respites during peace negotiations or diplomatic and cultural visits, there was escalating and increasingly frequent armed violence between the two states. In particular, the former KPNLAF, renamed the Revolutionary Army of Cambodia, RAK, fought the Vietnam People's Army at various times in the Cambodian territories of Ratanakiri, Mundulkiri, Kroche, Kampong Cham, Prey Veng, Svai Rieng, Kondal, Takav, Kampot, and some islands including Pulau Vai, Koh Aceh, Koh Tro, Koh Seh, Koh Tmai, Koh Sampoj, Koh Rung, and Koh Muk Riem. At the end of 1977, the conflict escalated into a full-scale war which reached deep into Democratic Cambodia and led to the decade to seize the United Nations Security Council of the matter on 31st December 1978. By 7 January 1979, the RAK had been forced to flee Phnom Penh. And from that point forward, the regime rapidly lost effective control of the greater part of Cambodian territory. It was against the backdrop of the creation of a radical new Cambodia and the war with Vietnam that S21 was established. B. Establishment of S21. On 15 August 1975, Son Sen called Duch to a meeting at the Phnom Penh train station together with B from Division 703 of the RAK. The purpose of the meeting was to plan the establishment of S21, which for the purpose of disclosing order includes the detention center and surrounding area, Tulslai, as well as its execution and re-education camp branches on the outskirts of Phnom Penh, named Chiang Ai and Prey So, or S24, respectively. S21 was unique in the network of security centers given its direct link to the Central Committee and its role in the detention and execution of CPK cadre. Son Sen appointed B as chairman of S21 and committee secretary, with Duch as his deputy in charge of the interrogation unit. Following the meeting, Duch brought a number of his former M13 staff to Phnom Penh to join forces with the Division 703 personnel already conducting security operations against former Lon regime members in Phnom Penh. S21 became fully operational in October 1975. In March 1976, B was transferred to the General Staff, and Duch replaced him as chairman and secretary of S21. Duch confirmed C a former Division 703 cadre, as his deputy responsible for the day-to-day operations of the office. However, Duch admitted he continued personally to oversee the interrogation of the most important prisoners and to be ultimately responsible for S21. The third member of the S21 committee and head of S24 was D. Duch stated that he was reluctant to accept his original appointment at S21 and that he tried to apply for an assignment with the Ministry of Industry. He further stated that upon his promotion to chairman and secretary of S21, he asked that the appointment be given to someone else. In any event, Duch took command of S21 and, by his own admission, understood, based on his experience at M13, that he was capable of performing his work better than his predecessor. Under Duch's command, S21 was divided into distinct units, each with its own function. The defense section was administered by C and his subordinate E. The interrogation section was directly overseen by Duch and was generally managed by F and by G. H was responsible for maintaining the document unit and he reported to Duch through C. I was the head of the special unit which had a number of duties. It received those sent to S21, brought them to the chairman of the defense unit, intervened in emergencies and carried out executions. There were also a number of other units which included photography, medicine, cooking and logistics. Duch ran S21 along hierarchical lines and established reporting systems at all levels to ensure that his orders were carried out immediately and precisely. Several witnesses said Duch was feared by everyone at S21. He enforced both the general rules of the party in relation to the work of the secret security police as well as strict rules which he devised for the operation of S21. Duch selected his staff personally. Initially, from amongst his most trusted subordinates at M13, and later by recruiting children and adolescents as guards, who, he said, were like a blank piece of paper and could be easily indoctrinated. The original S21 complex was located in Phnom Penh in Bang Kengkong 3 sub-district, Jamkamon district. The detention and interrogation facilities were originally located in a block of houses on the corner of streets 163 and 360. In late November 1975, S21 moved to the National Police Headquarters on Street 51, Rue Pasteur, near Central Market, Phra Thmai. Yet, in January 1976, it moved back to its original location. Finally, in April 1976, upon Duch's decision, the prisoners were moved to the premises of the Punye Yat Lycée, a high school located between streets 113, 131, 320, and 350. S21 operated at this location, which is now the site of the Duch Genocide Museum until 6 January 1979. The central building, referred to as Building E, was used to receive, register, and photograph prisoners, and a room was devoted to creating paintings and sculptures that glorified the regime. 4 other buildings, A, B, C, and D, were used for detention. Buildings B, C, and D housed the general prisoner population in a mixture of large mass detention cells and small brick or wooden individual detention cells. Building A, together with a block of houses located south of the former lycée called the Special Prison, housed important prisoners. The former school and the special prisons were the heart of the most secure and secret part of the S21 complex. They were surrounded by fences and the interior and exteriors were protected by armed guards. Many other buildings from the surrounding neighborhood were also part of S21. These including interrogation houses, execution sites and mass graves, mess halls, a medical center, houses for the staff, various offices and houses for Duch, and a house for the reception of prisoners. These buildings were all situated within a second outer perimeter that was also protected by armed guards. Initially, prisoners were executed and buried in and around the S21 complex. At some time between 1976 and mid-1977, partly in order to avoid the risk of epidemic, Duch decided to relocate the execution site to Chiang Ai, located approximately 15 kilometers southwest of Phnom Penh in Kondal province, and now the site of a memorial. The execution site consisted of a wooden house where prisoners were held until just before their execution and a large area that consisted of pits for executions. However, even after Chiang Ai became the main killing site, certain executions and burials took place at or near S21. Duch recognized that S24 was part of S21. In principle, S24 was tasked with reforming and re-educating combatants and farming rights to supply Office S21 and its branches. It was located outside of Phnom Penh near the execution site of Chiang Ai in the area of Wat Kadol in the Dong Khao district of Kondal province. Although witnesses state that the main structures and activities extended from the Preso prison to Jade village, it appears the total area of S24 was larger. C. Implementation of CPK policy at S21. A. 1. The policy of smashing enemies. The primary role of S21 was to implement the party policy to mean kill. Every prisoner who arrived at S21 was destined for execution. Although one witness claimed he was able to leave S21, the vast majority of evidence demonstrates that the policy at S21 was that no prisoner could be released. This is confirmed by testimony that prisoners brought to S21 by mistake were executed in order to ensure secrecy and security. Duch also claimed he tried to release prisoners on several occasions but was unsuccessful. Moreover, other prisoners pleaded with Duch for their lives or wrote letters through him to senior leaders, but to no avail. The CPK governed Democratic Cambodia primarily through DK state organizations, CPK administrative bodies, and the RAK. The 1976 Constitution of Democratic Cambodia and the party's own statutes gave the CPK Central Committee wide powers, including the ability to formulate party-wide policy and the authority to issue orders to subordinate zones and sectors. In practice, however, a subcommittee of the Central Committee, known as the Standing Committee, acted as the highest and most authoritative unit in DK. A Standing Committee decision from 9 October 1975 gave Pol Pot general responsibility over the military and Son Sen responsibility for the general staff and security. Duch has repeatedly portrayed S21 as an integral part of the political military structure of the CPK at the center level, referred to variously by Duch et Onka, the organization, the party center, the Central Committee, or the Standing Committee. Duch indicated that, as with all CPK political lines, the policy of smashing enemies was global. It stood for S21 for the entire party, the military, the state authority in the bases, and the police offices throughout the country. Duch stated that specific decisions concerning the persons to be sent to S21 were made by his superiors, while the exact role of his superiors is currently the subject of a separate judicial investigation. Duch has declared that S21 was run directly by the Central Committee. Duch specified, however, that he primarily dealt directly with Son Sen and Che, both of whom he believed to be acting on behalf of the Standing Committee. Although the policy of smashing enemies appears to have remained in force both before and throughout the temporal jurisdiction of the ECCC, the definition of those perceived to be enemies of the CPK evolved and broadened over the period as a result of domestic developments and the international armed conflict between Cambodia and Vietnam. Thus, from late 1975 and into 1976, S21 was significantly involved in the imprisonment, re-education, torture, and execution of persons linked to the ousted Khmer Republic regime. However, by the time Duch became chairman of S21, the party had clarified authorities to execute at different levels within the regime, and increasingly sent members of the revolutionary ranks through S21. A document dated 30 March 1976 and attributed to the CPK Central Committee reported a number of decisions, the first of which provided that, in order that there is a framework in absolute implementation of our revolution, and to strengthen our socialist democracy, the right to decide on smashing within and outside the ranks was to be bestowed as follows. If, in the base framework to be decided by the Zone Standing Committee surrounding the Center Office, to be decided by the Central Office Committee, independent sectors to be decided by the Standing Committee, the Center Military to be decided by the General Staff. Shown this text by the co-investigating judges, Duch commented that it was a historical document. It shows a turning point because it reveals the beginning of internal purges. Before that, mainly officials of the old regime were smashed. From that point, executions would take place mainly within the party. Duch adds that in 1976, Pol Pot had eliminated the exploiting classes, private property, officials of the former regime, religions, and teaching. Teachers were sent to rice fields. The decision of 30 March 1976 began a new period, during which the internal purges were predominant. In the following months, internal CPK documents would be filled with variations on the theme of a need for heightened revolutionary vigilance with a view to ensuring that the enemy is unable to bore from within the party and the army. Duch recognized that his role as chairman of S21 was to focus the office on the smashing purported traitors within the ranks of the revolution itself. In this regard, Duch said, initially, S21 was just for important prisoners or those from Phnom Penh, as well as members of the Central Committee. At first, low-ranking combatants only came to S21 if arrested in Phnom Penh. As a general rule, high-ranking enemies inside the party, state, military, or security apparatuses were sent to S21, having been implicated via a process which consisted of obtaining confessions from others previously arrested. When a superior was arrested, such as K, Minister of Commerce and member of the Central Committee, his or her subordinates would in turn often be sent to S21. Moreover, Duch recognized that the policy of smashing enemies almost always extended to their families, including children. Duch further recognized that, subsequently, when the repression intensified, S21 also received people from the countryside. I also witnessed massive arrivals of prisoners from certain zones. For instance, when the head of the West Zone Security Office, L, was arrested, I saw many people arriving from that zone. These arrests preceded the arrest of L's superior, M. This was an implementation of Ho Chi Minh's doctrine. Before cutting the bamboo, one must trim the thorns. Likewise for the Northwest Zone. This pattern is corroborated by prisoner lists that demonstrate clearly that by January 1979, S21 had detained persons from nearly every zone, every ministry, and every military unit in the nation. The role of S21 further extended to executing those in the revolutionary ranks who were accused of being influenced by or under the control of Vietnam due to their former or contemporaneous associations with the Vietnamese Communist Party. This rationale for arrest appears to have increased in direct correlation with the escalation of the international armed conflict. Similarly, as the conflict intensified, the numbers of Vietnamese civilians and soldiers arrested and sent to S21 also grew. 2. Dissemination of policy at S21. The political line of the CPK was disseminated at S21. Duch and other S21 cadre attended general political education and agricultural production planning meetings convened under the auspices of the Center General Staff. Duch and other former S21 cadre stated that they also attended training sessions convened by Son Sen to discuss the need to purge and smash enemies. Former S21 personnel agreed that the policy of extrajudicial execution was widely disseminated throughout S21 at annual meetings of the entire unit, as well as at smaller meetings of its various sub-units. Duch and other CPK members and Youth League members at S21 were also made aware of the role of their office in implementing these policies through the party journals, Revolutionary Flag and Revolutionary Youth. Allegations of treason to which S21 prisoners had been compelled to confess were presented as fact in these publications and alluded to in official DK propaganda. Alleged actors such as N, O, P, and K were repeatedly referred to by name. According to Duch, extracts from tape-recorded S21 confessions or written text were played or read out at meetings outside of S21 to justify the actions of the regime. Duch considered that from the time he became S21 chairman, specific instructions to and from S21 regarding security matters were conveyed exclusively through him. Former S21 personnel confirmed that Duch acted to further disseminate this line within the unit. In an S21 interrogator's notebook, a statement attributed to Duch noted that the work of S21 is a task of class struggle. That is, it is aimed at smashing the oppressor class, digging out their trunk and roots to defend the party, defend the proletariat class, defend the democratic Cambodia, and defend the line of independence and mastery. The notebooks of Duch's assistant, the interrogator F, seem to further corroborate Duch's contention that his detailed training of S21 staff was based on instructions from the superiors. 3. The use of S21 confession authenticated by Duch revealed the extent to which S21 played an active part in the process of attacking and eliminating enemies boring from within. In addition to executing prisoners condemned in advance as traitors, an overriding purpose of S21 was to extract confessions from prisoners in order to uncover further networks of possible traitors. Duch stated that the content of the confession was the most important work of S21. Confessions seem typically to have taken the form of political autobiographies by the prisoners, in which they were compelled to denounce themselves and others as traitorously serving the intelligence agencies of foreign powers considered to be enemies of the Cambodian Revolution. Those intelligence agencies included the United States CIA, the Soviet KGB, the organs of the Vietnamese Communist Party. These confessions, some many hundreds of pages long, contain detailed descriptions not simply of alleged treacherous activities, but also the structure and operation of all levels of the party and of all administrative units. Duch meticulously read, analyzed, and annotated and summarized the majority of these confessions for his superiors. He was therefore in a unique position to understand the decade-wide context of the CPK policies applied at S21. Duch said that the role of S21 was not to determine whether detainees were traitors, as their guilt was already established by the fact that they had been arrested and sent to S21. It was their confessions which served the political interest of those in control of the party by justifying arrest and implicating the neighbors of those sent to S21. Duch now maintains that he was, from an early time, skeptical of the veracity of the confessions, claiming that they were demanded from above. He explained that the contents of the confessions were used as excuses to eliminate those who represented obstacles, adding that even the Standing Committee, in my opinion, did not really believe in it. He also recognized that the operations of S21 were obviously not compatible with the existence of tribunals and procedural safeguards. Duch stated that in many cases he was given instructions concerning the extraction and content of specific confessions. In particular, he asserted that at the instigation of his superiors, the words CIA and KGB were initially used by the interrogators themselves. Regardless of whether they contained false or fabricated assertions, the confessions are said by Duch to have been given formal weight in deciding upon the arrest of those denounced as enemy agents. He explained that normally implication in one confession was not sufficient for a person to be arrested. It had to occur several times. Confessions obtained from one person often led to the arrest of many others they implicated as traitors. It also appears that names from different confessions were combined to form lists of enemies. Evidence of confessions annotated by Duch support his contention that they were forwarded to high-ranking party members. The functioning of S21. The following sections described and analyzed the acts committed on a day-to-day basis at Tu Slai, Priso, and Chiang 8 by Duch and his subordinates in furtherance of CPK policy. They set out the general manner in which detainees were processed at S21 from arrest and detention through to interrogation and ultimately execution. 1. Arrest and detention. A. Composition of the detainee population. Surviving documents have clarified the number and identity of detainees held at S21. Much of this evidence was compiled by the OCP by combining the prisoners' list and execution logs to form a single master list of S21 prisoners, named the Combined S21 Prisoner List. This list indicates that at least 12,380 men, women, and children were detained at Tu Slai. This compilation is not exhaustive, as some prisoners were not registered, and some records have no doubt been lost. This fact is supported by Duch, who identified a number of detainees whose names are missing from the compilation. The prisoners were predominantly Cambodian. The largest group was composed of cadre, workers and combatants, as well as their relatives who came from virtually every office and unit in the country and from all existing zones and autonomous sectors. The list provides an approximate overview which shows that more than 5,000 prisoners came from DK government offices and over 4,500 came from DK military units. DK cadre represented by far the largest group and included a number of members of the Central and Standing Committee